Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by AFGRI, Fort Knox, Hinterland, Monsanto, Nedbank, NWK and Senders. Every now and then, a man's mind is stretched by a new idea or sensation and never shrinks back to its former dimensions. Development is about transforming the lives of people, not just transforming economies.
Good day and welcome to Nation in Conversation with me, Theo Foster. Today's discussion involved technological integration in the agriculture sector and the impact it has had on enhancing production. You can follow us on Twitter at NationConverse or the website nationinconversation.co.za. Joining me in the studio today is Rashid Davids. He's the Director IT and E-Services at AFGRI, and Arno van Vieren, Manager Agriculture Management Services at NWK. Arno, technology, it is a broad term, but in agriculture, it has an impact on various aspects of agriculture. Let's unpack that.
Yes, I think if you talk about technology nowadays in agriculture, it's a very broad spectrum of developments that have taken place, and it could include anything from seed technology in breeding up to the most advanced developments in recent times, where you talk about GPS technology, computer technology, and tablets, for instance, that are now used to unpack this development, and as well as the knowledge that we have for the farmer at ground level.
So commercial farming is not the same today as it was 10 or 15 years ago. Today it's a science with the backing of technology.
Yes, advances in technology in agriculture has gone a long way. I think in the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen so many developments that are taking place mostly behind the scenes, where the consumer does not necessarily see what's going on behind closed doors, but we have come a very long way in the last 15 years.
Rashid, from your point of view, positioning an agriculture company in these changes, what is the priorities in terms of your point of view as part of an agriculture company?
I think, thank you, Theo. From our perspective, the way our company is positioned is we're fortunate in the sense that our business revolves around the customer, which is our farmer. So, we provide product to the customer in terms of managing, giving the farmer opportunity to manage his farm. We provide the equipment services from a John Deere perspective, and there's various other divisions within AFGRI that is supporting the farmer. From a technology perspective, when we compare the technology that we're using in South Africa, I can honestly say that we're up there with the first world countries, especially as far as our mature farmers are concerned. We are constantly developing new technology and driving that technology to make sure that we take our farmers with us along the journey.
Arno, the farmer implements the technology, but he obviously has an expectation from his service provider. And that expectation is that the farmer is on the forefront of implementing technology, being that on the seed side, precision farming, technology in terms of knowledge. In terms of supplying the farmer with the infrastructure, what is the demands that's being placed on the agriculture company?
The agricultural company, I think, plays a major role in getting technology and knowledge and even technology transfer right down to ground level. And a very specific function is placed in that situation where the farmer is actually expecting the agribusinesses and agri-companies to support him in this transfer from no technology to high technology. And in the recent studies, we've seen a number of students actually coming up with one of the constraints of technology transfer is especially the function of not getting this information up to the farmer and getting it implemented on farm level. So I think the agribusinesses and major companies are really responsible to get technology transferred, and that is currently not happening as it should be.
If you look at the current farmers in South Africa, and they compete with not only the farmer next door, but farmers worldwide. Price discovery takes place in the international commodity exchanges throughout the world. But that also means that there's little margin of error in terms of farming and farming practices. From a company point of view, how do you make sure that your farmers is up to date in terms of technology, in terms of pricing, in terms of transactional activities? How do you communicate that and make sure your farmers is up there?
I think, we have divisions within our company that is, first of all, very close to our farmers. This information is fed, through various sources to the farmers. We also run a commodity desk, a trading desk, where we have technological applications where this is shared with our farmers. But I think, primarily when we look at farming in South Africa, we have our mature farmers, and to these farmers we sell precision farming technology and solutions. Then we also have our primary farming. We have a division called Harvest Time that is looking after emerging farmers that have just started out. And I think the challenge with these farmers is a lot to do with funding. But we're having very fruitful discussions at this point in time with the land bank. From a technology perspective, collateral is always an issue, and we've just acquired a company called GeoAgro that is now assisting us from a technology perspective to then go back into the land, and we can possibly give anything from 11 to 13 years worth of history on the land. And we can now go to the land bank or to our financial services to get some kind of a funding model in place for these farmers to get off the ground.
There's a big yield gap in terms of emerging or new farmers and big commercial farmers. That yield gap, is technology part of the solution?
Yeah, definitely so. I think that the developing farmer and the small-scale farmer, they just don't have the resources. As Rashid has also mentioned now, money is often the problem, and collateral to get loans is often the problem. And that sort of puts a damper on the tempo at which these farmers can take up the new technology and introduce new technology. Unfortunately, a lot of the new technology is actually imported from overseas, which makes it quite expensive. And even for developed farmers, it's a really expensive exercise to really take up all the technology that's available. And I think that's where currently, with the focus on the developing agriculture that we have in South Africa and the rest of Africa, that is a constraint that we have to address.
Arno, after the break, I want to spend a bit of time on the concept of precision farming, big data, and where that fits into the program. Nation in Conversation will be back after the break. Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Arno, a term that we hear quite often these days, a buzzword, precision farming. What is precision farming, and why are people focusing on precision farming as part of the long-term solution?
Precision farming is a term that is often misplaced, misknown. I think a number of definitions are thought out about what precision farming is supposed to be. A more or less acceptable definition is basically that it's a process where a number of inputs are accurately measured, outputs are enhanced, and the whole idea behind precision farming is to get to the point that you have sustainable agriculture.
The point is collating information.
That's correct, yes. So it's the process of gathering a lot of information of what is going on a farm with different means, different platforms that are used. But the end result should be that you lower your inputs and you enhance your outputs.
Am I right in saying that therefore if you measure on a very detailed basis, that means you can plan ahead and adapt your inputs in order to maximize the yield on what you've put in the soil?
Yeah, that's correct. I think if you can take an example where normally you would plow a field of 50 hectares, with precision farming you would come into that field and divide that up into a lot of smaller managerial areas where you can finely measure and manage what's being done on a very small area. The idea behind that is that you have a lot of variance within a field, and with precision farming you can come in and do the optimum thing on different managerial areas within that field, and that optimizes the process of farming.
Are you seeing people that implement precision farming actually do better than people that do not implement it?
Now, there's definitely advantages, and you see it. You see a lot of money being saved in the process of actually doing the right thing. And for instance, if a certain area does not need to be fertilized up to a certain level, you can now come in and say, okay, that area has a lower fertilizer requirement, and now it is a lower input that you use in that area. But in the same breath, you can also say if you have a high producing area within that field, then you would put in more fertilizer on that area. Where in the past you would do an average thing over that field, and we see a lot of saving actually coming in, and you are now optimizing smaller managerial areas within the farm.
Rashid, this talks about another concept that we hear quite often, big data, and the usage of that big data to the benefit of whoever uses that data. What is big data?
Theo, big data has been around forever. I think when we look at the concept of big data, it's just information that is around us that we've never utilized to the benefit of what we should have utilized it before. So to give you a typical example, if we take, for instance, all the information that is collected from a John Deere tractor or a harvester, that information has always been available, but in a sense, is that we gotta turn that data into usable information that we can give back to the farmer to make some sense out of that data. So a typical example of that, could be that with the company that we've just acquired, GeoAgro, we can now, for instance, go and look at satellite images where, as Arno just pointed out, when you start breaking up a piece of land into different segments and looking at these images, you could possibly now use the devices to fertilize where you need to fertilize, to pesticide where you need to pesticide. Whereas in the past, everything was fertilized and pesticide, which means, when we talk, for instance, about precision farming, it's getting the best yield at the lowest input. And here technology plays a big part, which is directly related to what we call big data today.
Where does the agriculture company fit into this?
The agricultural company is well positioned to service the farmers in that production area or area of importance. And I think the role of an agribusiness today is quite diversified. It's anything from financing up to supply of inputs, as well as the grain handling side, where the farmer actually delivers the output at that grain company or that agribusiness. And that makes it quite a diverse field of work that we are in the agribusinesses. With that said, I think the farmer as a producer is in the position to acquire whatever he needs from that agribusiness, including the precision farming equipment that he needs.
So that skill base should also be available in the agriculture company.
Yes, I mean that skill needs to be developed, and it's a skill that needs to reside in business, where you know subject matter experts or business leaders could provide that in the form of usable information back to the farmers.
After the break, I would like to look at the future. Where is farming developing to? How would the farmer look in 5 or 10 years' time? And what would be expected of the agriculture company in 5 or 10 years' time? Nation in Conversation will be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Rashid, we talked about technology. We talked about the challenges in the farming industry. We talked about the new ways of doing things. But clearly that also means that the farmer, in order to be successful, will look differently than the farmer of today. If you look 5 or 10 years ahead, what will be the attributes that will make for a successful farming operation?
From a technology perspective, we cannot between the chain is not just between the agriculture company and the farmer. We've got to start looking at integrating more technology companies. For instance, you know, if we look at the cell providers, the companies that are providing connectivity, this is critical if we want to start deploying technology to the farmers. If I look at primary farming in the next 5 to 10 years from now, what I foresee is that, you know, we are going to be providing these emerging farmers with mobile devices where they get their training material on there, where they get procedures on there, where they get a lot of material on there to start and to manage their farms. I think one of the other, how can I say, stumbling blocks or barriers is that, you know, the farmer knows how to farm. He doesn't necessarily know how to run the administration of the farm. And I think here's opportunity for us, you know, to get involved, to assist with that administration in terms of providing a financial solution to the farmer, doing a payroll for the farmer. I mean, everyone today has a mobile phone, you know, to the extent that we're not fully utilizing it. And, you know, we see, for instance, in any kind of a farming environment, you know, that we could potentially now pay farmers on their mobile phones in South Africa into Africa, and have all these chain stores like the Checkers and the ShopRites, the Pick n Pays, linking into this, giving the workers the opportunity then to go and trade with these chain stores, you know, to withdraw cash from tellers, you know, which will also be beneficial to these companies. But I think what we need to do in the future to support that is to create opportunities for the farmer to concentrate on what they do best, and that is farming, and with us providing the technology for them to create better yields on their farms.
Arno, the farmer attributes 5, 10 years from now, how would it differ from today?
There's a big demand starting to appear from the normal farmer, be it a large commercial scale farmer or a developing farmer, to introduce technology, and especially cell phone technology, GPS technology, and computer technology on the farm. So that demand is growing. And with that, the demand from the farmer for relevant services, products, and technology to be available, that's going to grow. So I see in a 5 to 10 years period from now that the farmer is going to demand a lot more than what is currently being demanded. And we will have to pull up our socks to make sure that we get that technology to the farmer where that demand is now being created.
if you look at the South African population, we are urbanizing at quite a rapid rate, and that will continue. We're looking at the growing world population, which means that the demand on food security, on production of food, on limited resources will continue. That means that yields will have to keep on increasing. The effectiveness of farmers will have to keep on increasing. Do you believe that if one looks at the current trends in technology, that the South African farmer is positioned in a way whereby even if you only focus at the commercial farmers, the yields are there. But if you then look at the rest of the farming entity, the rest of the more traditional farming areas where there's a massive yield gap, what would be the easiest wins in terms of that yield gap?
I think, for us working closely with these farmers to provide the education, the expertise, to get these emerging farmers more to a mature level. And again, providing the services to them that is going to enable them to focus on farming and not necessarily more on the administration side of the business. I think from our perspective, having a company like Harvest Time in our stable is a company that focuses just on that. And creating these partnerships with the land bank, with these financial institutions to enable them to provide the necessary funding, obviously at the right risk appetite, for all parties concerned. And I think just going back to the agriculture companies, definitely there needs to be a huge skill shift in terms of the services or the skills that we're providing now versus what we're going to need to provide in the next 5 years.
Arno, your view of the future, are you positive?
Yes, very. I think technology is making a huge step at this stage. We are really advancing in terms of yield. We've got a lot of ground to make up in developing agriculture to make up that yield gap that we currently have. It's a bit of a challenge, but I think it's also something that we look forward to.
Thank you very much. You can join the conversation by following us on Twitter at NationConverse or visiting the website nationinconversation.co.za. From me, Theo Foster, goodbye.
Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by AFGRI, Fort Knox, Hinterland, Monsanto, Nedbank, NWK, and Sendes.
The world is changing today. The world is changing in every way. Let's stand together, put our hands together, join hands forever. We're making it better. No matter where